From Synerger, this is Polaris. I'm Chris McNulty. Business and technology are rushing forward at unprecedented levels of change, with more projects and products being demanded week by week. With those demands, managing and driving success of tasks, projects, and portfolios is more important than ever. Today, we'll take a look at delivery excellence, how you get there, and what it means for every organization. This is Polaris. Welcome to Polaris Pathways. I'm your host, Chris McNulty, Head of Strategic Markets at Synerger. Synerger is an advisory agency focused on transforming business for our clients, navigating strategies and leadership culture with ease. We've added something new lately. For the next several episodes, we're running a small contest. If you like what you hear, please help us spread the word and leave a positive review on Apple Podcasts. This contest will run from now through May 1st, when we'll select one extremely lucky winner to receive a Synerger prize pack. Staff at Synerger is not eligible for this contest. Today, I'm happy to introduce Michelle Boyd, rejoining us on Polaris. Michelle heads up delivery excellence for Synerger, and she's had a fascinating career that's taken her from construction through business school to global consulting and here to Polaris. Before we bring her on, let's define our terms and our data points. According to a recent report by the Project Management Institute, PMI, organizations that prioritize delivery management are 30% more likely to meet their goals and stay within budget. Agile methodologies, traditionally used in software development, are now being adopted by various industries such as manufacturing, healthcare, and construction. A study by McKinsey & Company found 75% of organizations in these sectors has implemented agile practices to improve efficiency and adaptability. So I think it's important to reflect on that the tools and techniques that we use to deliver the bundles of work we call projects or programs or portfolios is not just about a lot of people getting together and talking a lot and working hard. That the choice of methodology, the choice of leadership, the tools and techniques that you use there are directly correlated to the success that you can expect to gain from those. Another trend, of course, is the intersection of AI and project management. Gartner predicts by the end of this year, AI will automate 80% of project management tasks, leading to increased productivity and reduced human error. I've experimented with some of the AI tools, and there's definitely room to improve project management with AI. 80% seems a bit of a stretch, but we're still early in the year, so we'll see how that goes. Okay, we have Michelle waiting to share her expertise, so let's go. Okay, so welcome back. Today on Polaris, I am thrilled to be joined by a second-time guest, Michelle Boyd. Michelle, welcome back to Polaris.
Thank you very much. So happy to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you here again. Can you tell the audience who may have missed you the last time you were on a little bit about kind of you and your background and kind of the journey that's brought you here to our digital podcast shores?
Absolutely. So I'm Michelle Boyd. I am heading up delivery excellence for Synerger. For me, my career journey has always stayed primarily in project management, just different types of project management. So my ex-husband and we ran a hardwood flooring business very successfully for over 20 years. After we closed that business down, we both were just kind of sick of doing that type of work. And it got to a point where we would either have to really grow or scale back. And neither one of us had really any energy to do that anymore. So we closed the business down. That gave me an opportunity to think about what I wanted to do, next. And so I went back to school. I got my MBA while having two small children and working full time. So that was a really fun time in my life. And then I decided, once I graduated with my MBA, I decided that I wanted to change industries. Construction was not necessarily where I wanted to remain. My dad had been a vice president of marketing and advertising for several companies, so I got to see very close up what he did. He ultimately started his own PR firm, and I was really interested in that side of an industry, and I just figured a way to take my skill set as a project manager and turn it into, leveraging it in against that industry, right? So being able to deliver for marketing and advertising agencies.
Well, that's fantastic. And that's quite a journey. Being able to I think, bring that agency focus in is something that is distinctive in this arena.
Yes, definitely.
So we talked about it in the upfronts, just kind of the pace of change, the investment that's coming into all industries, especially ones that touch technology. And with that pace of change, there's more and more projects than ever. So we're here to talk to you today about delivery management, which is a pretty broad area. But let's just start by talking about that fundamental building block, which is a project. I'd love to hear you kind of say in your own terms. A lot of people will say, this is a project, that's a project. Sometimes it's a task, sometimes it's ongoing things. How do you define a project?
Sure. Then there's the PMP and the PMI, definitions as well. But they have some things in common. And I would agree with these things in defining a project, the characteristics that make a project a project. So, a project is going to be a temporary endeavor, right? It's not going to be something that is long-term, like a project management office. That would be a long-term item. It's going to deliver something, a product, a service, something net new, or a revision to something within a company. It's going to have specific end times, specific objectives, a budget, probably specific resources. So it's got a very temporary, finite set of things and guidelines around it that make a project a project.
I have in my travels run across a few things that are projects that have been underway for 6 years, 7 years. And
yeah.
If you're constructing a dam, that can be a 7-year project. But like the help desk.
Delivered in 10, Chris, obviously. Right? Like a 7 years plan, 10 years delivered.
The help desk is not a project. It's steady state. And I think that's an important thing. You've shared with me your thinking on it. I'd love you to share it with the audience. What's distinctive between project management and delivery management?
Great question. Yeah. So for me, I would say project managers are focusing on that project. They focus on the planning of a project, its scheduling, what resources do we need. They manage risk. They manage stakeholders. They manage, communication to ensure that the project is, everyone knows what's going on and that it's completed on time and on budget. Delivery managers focus a little bit more broadly, right? So we might have multiple projects and project managers under a delivery manager like myself. We tend to emphasize process automation. We look at processes for process improvement. We look at agile practices. Is that appropriate for what we're doing? Can we bring some of that thinking into the program or project? Client interaction, oftentimes we can sort of overlap with, say, an account manager on a program. Team coordination, right? So again, if we have multiple projects under what we're doing and what we're managing, then we might be coordinating those teams. And, we are looking to deliver value. I guess a project manager is looking to deliver value in what they're doing. But this level of value that we're looking is in terms of the outcomes against either that one project or that collection of projects.
So it's really about connecting those outcomes to the stakeholders of that temporary endeavor.
Yes, agree. Yeah, for sure.
I imagine you've run across some misconceptions about that too. Talk a little bit more about those. What is delivery management? What don't people understand about it?
Yeah. Some things that I hear from clients, not necessarily directly, but you start to infer, right? A lot of people think that delivery management is another name for project management. It's not. I mean, it can be, right? I can operate very much like a project manager depending on what's happening. And I have that in my wheelhouse and in my background. Sometimes people think that a delivery manager is really only about meeting a specific deadline. They bring you in to do one specific thing and you're kind of in and out quickly, versus being there from, start to finish, that we're not involved in strategic planning or stakeholder management, which we obviously can be. There's also some things just around, projects themselves that can be a little bit of a misconception. Clients can have a misconception about that, that a faster delivery, if we shorten the time it takes to deliver it, then it's going to cost us less, which isn't necessarily true, right? Scope is scope. So if I have to get that thing done more quickly, then I might have to bring in a specialist, which might cost us more money. I might have to throw more bodies at it. So we have more time, more man hours in a shorter period of time to get that done, if that's possible, because not all projects can be delivered like that, right? You have to get this thing done before you can get that thing done. And there's no way to really shorten that time frame. A lot of times folks think that, all projects or deliveries can be done the same way, that if it's software and it doesn't really matter. There's no nuance behind how those things are delivered. And there's actually a lot of nuance depending on the client, what their, infrastructure, whether that infrastructure is actually technological or resource-based, right? What's their experience doing projects, and how do they manage their own projects internally? Or do they? I've actually worked for organizations that don't have a methodology for delivering internally. It's sort of catch as catch can. You hope you get it done, but they don't really know how they're going to get there. And oftentimes those things are abandoned, right? And so then you get to kind of come in and show them, how to do things with a bit more of a structure. And I think the last thing that I'll mention here, there's a lot, right? There's a lot to unpack there. But I think the last thing would just, people think that technology in and of itself is going to solve the problem. So deploying a Microsoft M365 Office solution into an organization is going to fix all of that organization's problems. Right. It's not. It will help you. And, we can teach you how to leverage it to fill in what those, whatever, to help solve whatever those problems are. But the technology alone, it's not a case of deploy it and they will come and all your problems are going to be solved. We've probably got some other work to do besides just delivering that software.
And even before you can talk about delivery, even before you can talk about kickoff, there is the pre-project phase where you're figuring out the scope, the resources, timelines. So can you talk a little bit when you're figuring out those methodologies? People have heard things like waterfall or agile or hybrid tools like Wagile. What's different about all of those?
Sure. Agile has become, I think, probably the go-to for most organizations when they are inquiring with us about a program. They'll oftentimes ask if we're using Agile methodologies. It's been around for a very long time, but it's not necessarily always appropriate to deliver something in an Agile way. Agile projects are best if that project can be flexible, that there's some continuous feedback happening, right, in terms of sprints and things like that, and that there's iterative development. So customers often like it because they can see real tangible results in that product that you're building more quickly. And then you're really working and you're testing that off. Oftentimes you're testing what you're releasing from a functional perspective, and then working that back into a continuous improvement plan to get to whatever that final vision looks like. For waterfall, what happens is you deliver one portion, complete that, and then that allows you to build the next portion. So it's a little more foundationally based, right? So I deliver part A, and then part B, and then part C. And then Wagile is a kind of combo of the two, and I've done all three. Sometimes I've done all three on the same project. So for Wagile, I've done this especially in consulting. We would use it in a way where we would get, say, the upfront designs of the overall system done and approved by stakeholders and clients. And then when we do the actual software build and testing deployment, that side of things, we do that in an Agile way. So that's often what is called Wagile. So you're using both of those things in a structured way to be able to get the benefit of both of those based on whatever that project is.
Right. I mean, I do remember seeing Waterfall get a terrible reputation on some engagements I've seen where people spend so much time clarifying those requirements that it's taking them 12, 18, 24 months. And that's taking so long that the market conditions that commissioned the project in the first place are no longer valid.
Right. That's a great example. And I've had that happen too. We sort of got bogged down in those negotiations. And what we ended up doing was converting to an Agile methodology to get whatever alignment and agreements we could get from the customer, get those stakeholders aligned. Okay, great. Now we would go build on that piece that we had alignment for. And then you might continue those negotiations on the next few things. But it was a very successful way to even just help that organization. This particular organization was not great at internal communication. They didn't have a lot of structure behind that. So we were able to come in and actually help them to sort of sort that out and figure out some criteria for how decisions were going to be made on the program. So we decided that timeline was going to be the decision-making process versus budget or resources, right? So, or functionality. So because of that, we just made it very clear what things needed to be done first to deliver that.
Right. Well, when you're doing things first, we always come to the kickoff meeting. And, I think sometimes about a project I was on where there was we were building a new CRM solution and deploying it. This was an internal project. And one of our stakeholders went on leave for 2 months when we were finalizing the scope. Mm-hmm. And then they started showing up a month in, and we'd made a decision that we're going to focus on US only first. We're going to get it built. We're going to introduce it to the people who are here in this office. And then they kept bringing up on an almost weekly basis, I need to see the schedule for overseas training, because that was being talked about 3 months earlier. I think that a lot of that can be calibrated with a kickoff meeting. And I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on how you do that and to get to the right delivery. How can you use the kickoff meeting to ensure that quality?
Great question. And I love your example too, that brings up something I'll talk about first, and then I'll get back into kickoff meetings. That hidden stakeholder, right? That person who went on leave 3 months in and wasn't back for 3 months became a hidden stakeholder that you weren't aware of. And those folks can be a real problem as you go through delivery. So kickoff meetings can absolutely help to mitigate some of that, hopefully up front. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, my goal is to make sure those things don't happen at all. So for kickoffs, for me, they are critically important. It's an opportunity to set expectations, ensure that we have alignment on our scope, our outcomes. We define what success looks like. I oftentimes will write a mission statement for the program, and it'll be something along the lines of, at the end of this project, if we have delivered a CRM system that does these things for you, we would consider this project a success. Is that right? And clients will nod, right? Or you refine it until they nod. And then what I do is I leverage that throughout the project delivery. Every status meeting we have, every steerco we have, we flash that mission statement on screen. And sometimes in projects, I've had customers sort of get sick of it. I don't want to see that again. Yes, we're still on the same page. Great, mission accomplished. And other times we amend it. As you're going through the project, things change. Whether it's the market has changed, the business has changed, the outcomes, we need this thing first, not that thing. And so when that happens, you need to be able to modify. I had somebody tell me once that basically it was my way to read a client the contract without reading them the contract. Here's the things we're going to do. Here's the things we're not going to do. The more detailed, the better. You want to make sure that everybody's nodding throughout we'll always call out if anything doesn't align with your expectations. This is the time for us to revamp that. Do we need to revisit the budget, the contract, or can we move forward with what we have with this new detail or piece of information, helping to shape how we deliver this? But it's also a really good time to find out what's been promised internally. Oftentimes in projects, before you're ever boots on the ground, lots of conversations have happened internally, and you don't know what those conversations are. You don't know what promises your key stakeholders have made to their leadership. So the question that I often ask, well, what checks have been written that I have to cash, right? I want to know what I'm up against. And I've only really ever had, through these detailed kickoffs, that content come up. I had a VP of marketing at one point when I ran a kickoff that was this detailed and asked exactly that question, tell me that he had told the HR department they were going to get a particular set of content on a particular set of pages in a particular way. And so we had to deliver it that way. It wasn't necessarily the best from a UX perspective, but that's what the steerco's, understanding and expectations were. And they were funding the project. So if we didn't give them those things, it was going to make that VP not look very good and was going to, make the clients really unhappy. So key critical piece is having those detailed conversations.
I know that you've dealt with many projects and many programs and many portfolios over your career. I have found that the best folks at that, and I'm putting you in that camp firmly, you should have a toolkit, this thing you have sort of honed and bring from project to project. And for some people, it might be a budget template. What are some of the things that you have found kind of are the best ways that you can put your steering on a delivery?
Sure. Love that question. I do have my tested, they're templates, right? And I do take them everywhere with me. I do improve them over time, as deliveries change now with, AI is having a big impact, right, in how we're doing delivery. So that's definitely taking a little bit of there's some additions to those templates that are based on that AI experience. So the kickoff content, that is absolutely a template for me. Everything that I'm going to cover, I cover exactly the same set of content time over time with clients. So that kickoff deck is a template for me. Status decks, right? The weekly status is 100% a, locked and loaded template. Sometimes clients, if they're very sophisticated, will have also a status deck template that they want you to use, which we're always happy to do that. The RAID log, right, is something. So risks, assumptions, issues, dependencies, and I just do that as an Excel.
Can you say more about the RAID log? Because I've seen it written two ways, as RAID and sometimes with the second D. What's your approach there?
I use it with two Ds. So dependencies is the first one. That's the traditional one that you see in most RAID log templates. I add decisions as a tab in my Excel RAID log. So it's really common if you have a longer program, you have months that you're delivering something. As you get towards the end of a program of delivery, oftentimes, like we were talking about before, things kind of change along the way in the process of delivering, whether that's internally, externally. Maybe it's for the software you're delivering itself. It has a net new version that comes out in the midst of your delivery. Hopefully you're accounting for that ahead of time, but things happen, right? So as you have these longer deliveries, it's easy to forget why a particular decision was made very early on. So you're able to go back into that documented decision log as part of the RAID log and say, okay, well, on this date, at this time, we had this conversation and we made these decisions, and here's why we made those decisions. And it's infinitely helpful. And sometimes what happens is we'll say, okay, well, those criteria are no longer important, and so we can change that decision. And so then you're able to log that as the thing. It's just a really beneficial way to sort of remind everybody, right? There was a reason why we decided it, and it's very easy to forget in all the nuanced details of a complex delivery as to why you decided to do this thing over that thing.
Good. With complex deliveries, I know one thing that you've done throughout your career is needing to step in when a project has gone off course somehow. So, I'd love to what does that look like when you get the phone call that like this thing is not going well? Like, why does it happen? And like, what does your first 7 days look like when you get parachuted into something like that?
Yeah, I love this question. I am exceptionally good at rescuing projects, but I really dislike having to do it. It's a very tough situation to come into because, as you said, things have gone wrong. Something's gone wrong. Something's gotten ugly, and you have to uncover what that is. And oftentimes, the folks who were boots on the ground during that time frame don't necessarily want to reveal all of the bits and pieces about it. So you hope that you can get to those details, get to those reasons. So I ask very detailed questions about whether it's, okay, resources, how's everybody doing, right? Each aspect and component of the project You do it a full-on detailed assessment of all of those things, talk to as many people as I possibly can, client. Sometimes if we are delivering with partners, I'll ask the partners what's happening. I ask my team what's happening, and just try to get to, from that 360 perspective, what the root cause of the problem or problems are. And then you start to craft what the solutions are. And typically the best way to go about finding those solutions is, again, as I was talking about a little bit earlier, you come up with a criteria for decision making. So it could be budget. We don't want to spend any more. We're over budget, but we don't want to spend any more. And yet we still want the same amount of functionality. So you get really creative with your team and the client about how to solve that problem. Oftentimes it's breaking it down into smaller component parts and delivering potentially in phases. So if they want all the functionality, but we can't do it right now for some reason, we may be able to give a part or a piece of that makes them happy. And then they get the remaining parts and pieces, as a sort of a slow roll, if you will, kind of behind that. So it's challenging. It's ultimately massively rewarding when you do rescue them.
We've all heard stories about projects that have gone off the rails. I know that there's never going to be one single reason why it happens, but why does it happen?
I would say the number one reason is going to come down to miscommunication of some type.
Okay.
Some misalignment in expectation and understanding or delivery. We thought we knew what we were delivering. The client thought they knew what we were delivering. We may not have run a very detailed kickoff, because if it wasn't me doing it, not everybody runs kickoffs like I do. They didn't align that project and those expectations. So maybe there was under communication by the client, by us in delivery. Generally, that is mostly what it comes down to. You make an assumption. A client makes an assumption about what's included. We make an assumption that the client knows what's included. So all of those things need to be really explicitly discussed. If you don't do it in a kickoff, you need to be doing it very quickly within those first few weeks of kicking the program off.
We've seen over the years different sets of tools come into the forefront, whether people are looking at things like Microsoft Project or all of the cloud-based communication tools. How does technology make this easier, and how does tech make it harder?
AI is coming a long way. I'm really excited about the advancements that are being made. I know Microsoft has a whole bunch of plans for Planner, which is going to be much more like Microsoft Project has been in the past, especially Microsoft Project Online. So that is it's a real advantage to be able to have an AI-based platform that can retain, we were talking about those templates earlier, so it can retain that template. I oftentimes, when you're doing the same sorts of delivery time and time again, you can leverage a structure of a previous project plan and leverage that for the net new, making whatever, minor adjustments you need to, but it's a big time saver, right? So, and I've been testing AI, even in where it's at right now, in creating work back plans for some events that we've been doing. And I've been very impressed with some of the baseline answers and responses that I'm getting from Copilot specifically. It's doing a really good job. It doesn't necessarily give all of the details, but if I give it a really good detailed prompt, it will give me back a very good structure. And then I really can just bake in the resources, their rates, timelines, and adjust those, as needed, and just bring, one or two maybe different details into that plan. But it's really exciting to see where that's going and how it's going to help.
So with technology, there's lots of ways to manage the flow of work and the tasks and who's doing it and so on. And obviously, AI needs to have a source to be able to reason over those things. When is it sufficient to just have a bunch of tasks written in Excel or written in Planner? What are some of the benefits of doing something that's more structured, that's more formally a project or formally a program?
I can't think of a time where we would ever really want to just have a list of tasks that don't have dependencies and don't have the detail of resources and budgets and things like that. So there's probably never a time, right, where you can't, especially on the types of delivery and programs that we work on. You really do want to have an end-to-end view, whether it's use whatever view you want, whether it's a Gantt chart view, a calendar view, a planner view, a project view, but to have a view of how you're going to get from point A to the finish line, right? From start to finish, how are we going to get there? And the only way we are able to do that is by having that detailed project plan. So, things like ADO, Jira, they've come a long way in being able to help us. And now with the integrations that we have with so many of these platforms, AI, right into Jira to Teams, Teams to Planner, these are all huge time savers. I remember back in the day when I worked for advertising agencies, I would have to create the project plan in my little laptop and then try to upload it into a project server, which was a nightmare because of the formatting. If you didn't have it exactly the way it needed to be formatted, once it was in the online version, it would hose your entire plan. If you had details missing, it would hose it and you wouldn't see it. Oh, it was just a nightmare. So,
I think that's an example of where technology can just be misaligned. I've done a fair bit of consulting around Project Server and run across clients who believe that all you need to do is get the most sophisticated project management software possible, and you're going to get to all the benefits of resource loading and dependency management. And I don't think there's an easy button.
It is getting easier, but like all things AI, you need to have that expert. I'm the expert from a delivery standpoint, be able to review whatever that system is that's putting that plan together and say whether or not it's viable. Fill in the gaps that are missing, correct whatever assumptions it's made to create that plan with reality, right? So like anything AI, you need that human expertise to be able to make it be that efficiency, that piece that gains you efficiency.
If you think about some of the vast global enterprises that you've touched, what's a delivery you're particularly proud of?
I had a delivery a few years ago at my last organization before I joined Synerger that I am probably most proud of. It was a large-scale delivery. We were on the program for about 4 years. We created what we called the hub. It was a single pane of glass, a single dashboard for this company, which was a big oil company, for their employees to be able to leverage for everything that they needed to do from their day to day, for their day to day. So they could send email, they could chat or text with people like we do in Teams. They could schedule meetings. They could find meeting rooms. They could do really everything, open and close invoices, approve vacation schedules for their team, review resumes. They could do everything from this hub. And we did a little bit of customization. We did a little bit of net new development for that program. The company at the time was having a hard time not only retaining talent, but also getting folks who were just graduating from college wanting to join their organization, right? Just modern times and what our current workforces are looking for. They're looking for cutting edge technology. If they're coming from a college campus, they want a very integrated and easy experience for them because that's what they have on their handheld devices every day and on their laptops every day. So it was an incredible delivery that just, not that we didn't have our challenges, but we had an amazing supportive client team who was very willing to work with us when we came across some issues. Single sign-on on mobile was a bit of a technical challenge that we decided to just launch without that piece. And then within a very quick set of weeks, we were able to deliver that to them. But the client was very amenable to helping to make those tough decisions and get that delivery to go. So ultimately, we were able to give the customer about $14 million back in efficiencies, just in time savings, licensing reduction, things like that.
That's great. Well, Michelle, it's really been wonderful kind of having you walk us through what delivery excellence looks like. But I always love to ask my guests about something sort of outside of your field of expertise. So I'd love to hear about something that you may have read or seen or heard lately that really has had an impact on you. Yeah.
Oh, there's a new Netflix 0 Day. That was really good. Robert De Niro is really the main.
Michelle, thanks for joining us. What are the best ways the audience can stay in touch with you?
The best ways to stay in touch with me, obviously, our Synerger website, synerger.com. I am also on LinkedIn as Michelle Boyd and listed as head of delivery for Synerger. So you can find me through any of those channels.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for being our guest, Michelle, and please come back soon.
Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure.
Up next on Polaris Events. This year is heating up with more and more events carrying us closer to summer. Here's what we're watching. From March 31st through April 2nd, the Association for Intelligent Information Management, AIM, will host their annual conference, the AI plus IM Summit. I'm on the board of directors, and of course, I'll be down there in Atlanta to share and learn the latest in information management and artificial intelligence. You can register at aim.org. Next, the M365 Community Conference. This will be May 4th through 9th at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Jared Spataro and Jeff Teeper will be keynoting from Microsoft, along with other speakers from Synerger, Microsoft, partners, customers, and more, even me. You can learn more and register at nextgen365events.com. The European Collaboration Summit. This will be later on in May from the 26th through the 28th in Dusseldorf, Germany. And many friends of Synerger who will be speaking at other events throughout the spring will be gathering over there. And lastly, as we get closer to summer in late June, Synerger will be speaking and sponsoring TechCon 365 Seattle. This event will be held at the Seattle Convention Center, June 23rd to 27th. We'll be in the brand new building, so hopefully it still has that new car smell. And you can learn more at techcon365.com. We'll have links to all of that and more in the show notes. You can learn more at synerger.com/events, and we'll add more events throughout the year. If you have an upcoming event you'd like us to promote on Polaris, please get in touch, and we'd be happy to include it. That's going to do it for another episode of Polaris. I'd like to thank our guest, Michelle Boyd, for joining us and sharing her thoughts on delivery excellence for modern organizations. We encourage you to check out our show page to links to everything we discussed today and more. Visit us at polaris.synerger.com. Send us your questions and feedback for the Synerger team. You can reach us via email at polaris@synerger.com. Remember to rate, review, and tell all your friends about the show. Follow us wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Polaris is produced with help from Riverside.fm. Our theme song, Alternative Dream, is provided courtesy of Adobe. Graphic design by Josh Brantley. Additional music and sound provided by Indie Guy Records. Thanks for listening. I'm Chris McNulty, and this has been Polaris, a show that charts the course for business and technology transformation from Synerger. Learn more at synerger.com. See you next time.